So today's topic is lifecycle hooks. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm talking about these things: on init, on destroy, on changes, do check, after content init, after content checked, after view init, after view checked. So these are the lifecycle hooks we have. So what are fundamentally these lifecycle hooks? These are all functions. Lifecycle hooks are functions which will be called automatically by the Angular, right? So in every component you can have all these lifecycle hooks. In every component we have these lifecycle hooks. Not only component, we can also have these lifecycle hooks in directives also. But in directives we have on init, on destroy, on changes, on do check. That's all. After content init, after content checked, view init, view checked are not available for directives. So every component can have all the 8 lifecycle hooks. Okay. So these are all called by compiler. I mean, sorry, your Angular. But when they will be called, all are called at the same time. Why should they call? See, as soon as you load the component, you may need to call some functions automatically. Already one function is getting called automatically, that is called as constructor. But that will be called immediately after your component object gets created. But it is not, I mean, at that time, by that time, all the data or the view are not at ready. I mean to say, your component view is not yet loaded. Before that only your constructor will be called. So if you want to call different functions at different certain times, you need to call this, you need to make use of this life cycle hooks. Let us see with an example. So basically this is my application. So now I would like to open a new application. Hopefully you don't have any issue with the voice.
No
No,
issue,
sir,
sir.
it's clear.
Okay, fine. So here I have a component called a component. So let me go to app component.ts and let me write the lifecycle hook. First, I mean, even though it is not a lifecycle hook, I just want to write this constructor. So as soon as your component gets loaded, this constructor will be called automatically. That is what I want to show you. No one is actually calling the constructor, nor a button click or something like that. And as soon as the component gets loaded, this console.log, I mean this constructor will be called. So app constructor. Okay. So let us see the output. In the console you can see app constructor. Yes or no? So automatically this constructor gets called. So in the same way, if you create one more component, cd app, and here I would like to create another component that is called ng gc, what do you say, parent component. Okay, so it creates a parent component. Here it is. And now in the parent component also I will be having a class file. In that class file I will be having the constructor. Of course, one the um, ng OnInit lifecycle hook got already created, but it doesn't have any code to get executed. But yes, let me show you whether this constructor gets called or not. Console.log of parent constructor. So as soon as this parent constructor is not going to get called now, because I'm not loading this component. So if I load the component in your app component, let me remove this. This is h1. This is what is this? This is app component, and below this I would like to load the app parent. This is called parent works. So here parent constructor also called. So as soon as I load the parent component, this the respective constructor will be called. Okay, next. Now after the constructor there are lifecycle hooks, right? 7 lifecycle hooks. So these 8 lifecycle hooks. All these lifecycle hooks will be called at certain times. So first is ng OnInit. Even though this is not the first lifecycle hook which is called, but generally because of the name we will be calling it as, we will be defining it in most of the components. Okay, and of course this is the place where we initialize the component values. Okay, component binding, all these things will be done but at this particular, not binding, especially the values or initialization part will be done at the this ng OnInit. So here I will be calling console.log of parent on init. So you can see this. So after parent constructor on init got called. The same way you can also have on init for your app component also. Ng on init console.log of app on init. So app constructor, parent constructor, app init, parent init, on init. So can you see this? So because I have this child component, I mean parent is the child component to app component, right? So after app component, after parent components constructor, the app component constructor got called. Okay, that's how as soon as you try to load the component, the very first function which will be called is the constructor. Okay, next thing is, next lifecycle hook we have to understand is on changes. So this will be called as soon as any what you say, any input property is getting changed. Okay, input property value gets changed. Let me show you. For that I will create one child component here, nggc child. Just for the sake of naming conventions, I decided the name as child. So here in the parent component, uh, what do I do is I'll have an input type is equal to text, and Input type is equal to text, and of course I have a binding. The binding is, one second, I will also create a variable here, sorry, property here, that is called as a. Let us see a. So I'd like to bind that a here with ng model, which gives us the two-way data binding, and I can print it over here. A, control K S. What happened? Yes, if you want to use ng model, you had to include the forms module in your app module. Forms module from @Angular/forms. Okay, one more thing, I had to put this in the import section. Now you don't get any error. Yeah. So here, as soon as I write the code, I enter some value into the text box, immediately the component is getting the value. The parent component is getting the value. So just for the sake of clarity, I would like to put this entire parent component in a division, and I would like to apply some color to that. Okay, and for styling I will put hash d1 bordr border 2px solid red. Okay, so that it can have some, okay, and let me have some padding also, padding 20px, margin 10px. Okay, so this is the parent component I'm talking about. So as soon as I have entered the value, it will be displaying in the sign. Okay, now ng on changes will not be called as soon as the changes occur in the component. Ng on changes will be called only if the input properties of the component are getting different, are getting changed. But there is another lifecycle hook called DoCheck. This will be called as soon as the value of your component, any value of your component gets changed. Let us see the output. Let us see that hook. First, I had to write that hook in the same component. That is to, okay, one more thing. One more important thing is all these hooks are actually defined in an interface, respective interface. For example, OnInit, ng OnInit function defined, I mean to say method defined in OnInit interface. So definitely we have to implement this interface in our component. The same way, doCheck is also there in doCheck interface. So for that, first I had to import doCheck interface and implement doCheck. Then you have to implement the respective method called ng doCheck. So here console.log of parent doCheck. That means it will be printed. Okay, let us see this. So by default this doCheck got called two times. Okay, let me erase it. Now you see, as soon as I enter a value in it, that means the property value of your parent component is getting changed, isn't it? So as soon as a value gets changed in the parent component, DoCheck will be immediately called. The same way, if I try to implement the ng changes, on changes from on changes interface. So let me implement it. Ng on changes console.log of parent on changes. So on changes didn't call at any time. Even my component is getting changed, the on changes doesn't have any thing to implement. So this on changes will be changed, called only if the input properties of the respective component is having different values or is getting changed. So anyways, of course, if I want to pass if I want to have an input property, I can have it. Okay, how can I have an input property? Yes, how can I have an input property? By using input decorator. Input decorator. So here I will create an input property at the rate input x. So I would like to bind this value from the parent of this parent component. The parent of this parent component is app component. Here I can bind it. So to bind it also, first I will create a variable here, something like y, and here you see input type is equal to y. Sorry, input type is equal to text, and come on, ng model is equal to y, and then that value I can pass it to this app component. So, sorry, parent component. So this parent component can get the value like this to, but I had to pass it to the input property. So here I go. So now as soon as I change the value to this y, this will keep on changing the value at x. That is x. X is an input property at parent component. So as soon as an input property gets changed, this on changes will get called. Okay, let us see this. So this is a app component value. So if I change this, can you see this parent on changes are getting called? Parent on changes are getting called. Parent on changes are getting called. Yeah, of course, DoCheck will also call, because DoCheck is fundamentally executed as soon as any value changes in the component. But when on changes will get called only when the input property is getting changed. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. Next uh, ng sorry, on destroy is a method lifecycle hook which will be called as soon as a component destroys or component removes from your application. So already parent component is getting loaded, so I will create a button in the app component, and when I click on this button, I would like to hide this. When I click on this button, I would like to hide this value. Let me try with the input checkbox. Yesterday it didn't work. Input type is equal to check, and okay. I need to have a um, property here. I had to bind it. In fact, I will check, and I had to bind the ng model to that variable. The new variable is flag. Flag. Okay, then I can display what is there in the flag. So let us see this. Input type is equal to checkbox, not check.
There will be a checkbox.
Yeah. So if I click on the checkbox, it says true, false, true, false, true, false. It's nice. It's working, right? Can you see parent do check calls? As soon as any change occurs, the do check will get called. So now
Yes.
based on the value of the flag, I can hide and show this, but not hide, add and remove that app parent component. How can I do that? Star ng if is equal to flag. So now you see this. So based on this particular checkbox, I can hide and show this particular box. Can you understand me? This point.
Yes. Yes.
So as soon as this particular checkbox unchecked, this parent component gets removed out of the application. So at that time, so such times, we can call the Angular tries to call the on destroy method if it is available uh, in your component. So if I have an on destroy method in my component, so definitely I need to have on destroy, and then I had to implement it, and then ng on destroy console.log of parent destroy called. Okay, parent destroy is inefficient. So now parent constructor called, parent on changes, parent on init, do check, everything gets called. Okay, but when I remove it, immediately parent destroy. That means this hook is getting called automatically. So these are the different cases: on init, do check, on changes, and destroy. Now there are four more things, like that is after content init, after content checked, after view init, and after view checked. So this has to be understood in this way. So for example, there is a component which is getting loaded. In that, while it is getting loaded, there are different things. One is class file, that means creation of the class file, creation of the object is one part, and after that printing the view, that means displaying the view, is another part, and binding the data into the view is one part. Binding the data into the view is one part, and then initialize. Sometimes the data may be coming from the remote location, like a database server or some API. So if we have initiated the content, I mean the data, getting the data, that is also one part. And once we get all the data and we have finished the binding of the data into the uh, view also, everything is over, then this particular content is also comes under checked. Okay, basically this after content in it will be called in the first place. Let us see this, how does it all looks like. So for that I had to make use of on I'm sorry, after content init, after content init, after content checked, after view init, after view, after view checked, sorry, after, this is after view checked and after content checked. Okay, so all of them are available now. Then we had to implement them. After content checked, after content init, after view init, after after view checked. Okay, so these are the different what constructors what we have, sorry, interfaces what we have, and we are going to implement them. Here we go. So I need to write down that ng after content checked. So this is different, ng after content init. Okay. So console.log of I just want to show you when this will all called. After content init, after content checked. The same way, after view init and after view checked, after view init, after view checked. Okay, so finally I completed the all the implementation. Now let me go to the application. So here I'll simply remove that and I will write down, if I click it, see this parent constructor got called, then parent on changes, then parent on init, then do check. Can you see after content init, then after content checked, then after view init and after view checked. So these are the fundamental things. See here. So first it will call after content init. So so your component first tries to get the content. After content is available, then the view will be displayed. Then the view will be displayed. Let us see that part. What do you mean by content is content init? All the content is ready. Sorry, content is initialized. Okay, what do you mean by initialized? To get the data, whatever the manipulations you want to do, whatever the data you want, whatever the content you want to put it in your HTML, that content is available to you or not. If it is not available, first it will make sure it is available, right? So that process, initiation of that process comes under after content in it. Then after receiving everything, yeah, now I have every data, then it will call, the component automatically calls after content checked. Okay, so immediately after view is initialized, then your after view init will be called, and once the view is completely ready, then view checked it will be called. So you see this do check, there must be some changes. Let me change, let me see this. As soon as I click on it, a, so parent do check, and then parent, this is coming because of log, okay, of the clicks and all. Parent after content checked, parent after view checked. So every time when you make some changes, once the content is ready of the change, then the view will be modified. That means why view init is not called over here, view is already initialized. Once the view is initialized, we need not to do again and again. Once the view is initialized, that is over. You are not doing any changes in the view, view is already there, so view init will not happen again. The only change we have is, చెప్పరా, చేసేసాను రా నిన్న. నిన్న కాదు, నిన్న నైట్ 10 గంటలకు చేశాను. నిన్న జరిగిందిరా. సరే నేను మళ్ళీ చేస్తాలే, బాయ్. హలో.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I got a phone call in the way. So this is about your what this is all about, life cycle hooks.
After content check. Yes.
Life cycle hooks, hopefully you understood this. Okay, and try to make
Yes.
a http call in
Yes.
this
Yes.
and check it out how this particular life cycle hooks are working basically. Okay, so subsequently how this life cycle hooks can work upon. Okay, so that is what I wanted to talk to you about life cycle hooks. Hope you understood the class. Hope you understood the life cycle hooks, and let's move on to the next topic tomorrow. Yeah, okay, that's it for today.